Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ImPerfect Podcast. On today's episode, we are going just a bit outside of our region and even country.
We are very excited to be chatting with Natasha and Amelia today, who most of their podcast followers would know as the Graveyard Girls.
Natasha and Amelia are both from and live in England and started their podcast in the spring of 2022. The girls had originally met each other at work, and after several months of just casual hellos back and forth, their schedules started to line up and their friendship grew. So they started to spend time together outside of work, and after discovering some of their individual interests, Natasha shared that she wanted to start a podcast but didn't want to take the leap alone. Hence, the Graveyard Girls podcast was born.
Their podcast covers true crime, unsolved cases, mysteries, and even conspiracy theories. We'll let them speak further to this near the end of the episode as well, but they do also have a Patreon where they do weekly bonus episodes and create a number of mini-series covering a variety of interesting topics.
So you might be wondering, where did we find these two? And it just so happens that when we started our podcast in the fall of 2022, the Graveyard Girls podcast was our first follower on Instagram. So we took note of that and we knew we'd be inviting them on the podcast in the near future.
So the day has finally come. The ImPerfect Podcast presents the Graveyard Girls podcast. Hi, Natasha and Amelia.
Hello.
Well, why don't you start off the podcast today by telling us, what is your story? Who's the Graveyard Girls? What are your interests? All that kind of interesting stuff.
Well, the Graveyard Girls is Natasha and Amelia.
Yeah.
We are a true crime and mysteries podcast.
We met through work. We had a lot of midnight ramblings. We worked a graveyard shift, hence the name.
Okay.
Good one.
Yeah, so that came up, and then I don't know, we just had a lot of random ramblings, and a few people mentioned, like, we can always hear you pair nattering away down at the end of your island. Like, have you ever considered doing a podcast?
Yeah.
Well, they mentioned it to you first, didn't you?
Yes.
And then
someone came up to me and was like, Amelia's got a great podcast voice, and I've always wanted to do a podcast. And I was just like, I'll just use Amelia use her voice for a podcast. And then our conversations at night are a bit random anyway. So it was like, yeah, why don't we just start recording them? And then the Graveyard Girls was born.
Yeah, we just sort of started it, and we had a lot of ideas of things we wanted to sort of do. We just didn't really know where to start. And then we just figured at one point we're gonna have to dive in and start somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how we started it.
That's exactly what we found too. I mean, you guys started in the spring of 2022, correct? Yeah. So we were, a couple months behind, and we're still trying to figure everything out. But it's like you said, you just have to take the leap and start, and you have an idea and you want to do something, and you might as well just do it and figure it out along the way, right? So
yeah, we're still figuring it out along the way. We're still changing it. We're still changing bits and figuring it out. But yeah, it's still a work in progress.
That's it. We put in we're just amateur podcasters because we had literally no idea. We hadn't even really done much research on it. No. We didn't know how to do any editing, any audio stuff. So it was literally in the deep end. We had one mate that did media studies. So we was kind of messaging him every day, we don't know what this means or how this works. Could you help us?
Yes, our first episode was a nightmare.
Yeah,
I think we nearly cried.
Yeah, we cried. Editing, I had no idea how to do it. So I was copying and pasting it, and it was just rebounding everything. And then there was 4 of our voices. It was a nightmare. But yeah, we eventually got it out on May the 4th.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, and even just like you're saying, the audio and everything, that was just for us too, same thing. Do we want to use Zoom? Do we want to just use we knew we wanted to be on video, but there's this whole people don't realize you can't use 2 mics at once kind of thing. And anyway, so so why don't you tell us a bit about maybe a couple of your episodes, what you talk about in the episodes, what you guys on your own just do for fun, who you guys just are as individuals.
Okay,
so lately we've been doing like a joint episode which we like discuss things rather than doing cases. So we've sat down to watch some Netflix specials, but then 2 episodes a month we have one where it's like I do a case and present to Amelia, and then Amelia presents a case to me. Mostly they're true crime, sometimes they're mysteries.
we've done a few conspiracy theories as well. We basically just sort of go away, research it, then present it to each other, and then sort of have a bit of a chat. So if it's been like a murder mystery, we'll one of us will present that case, and then it's sort of like, okay, well, what's your theory? Do you agree with some of the suspects? Or we'll throw some completely random one out there. There's quite a bit of dark humor in there. Some I think some people will probably say a bit inappropriate, maybe.
It's your podcast, though. You can do what you want, right?
We tend to stick to older cases because we don't feel comfortable saying like, oh, this person might be complicit in this crime if they're still alive, because that could happen, could change something in their life, and we don't want to do that.
Right.
So
I really like the Victorian cases especially, and it's just easy because, like, say, if those people are still alive or the case is ongoing, there's always that thing of, I don't think we're that influential that we could say one thing and then everyone's going to go along with it, but you have that risk of you could really ruin someone's life
or reputation.
And I think we're quite conscious that we found it quite hard to do that, so that we could sort of have a bit more free speech, if you like. We tend to go for those older cases, and also you can look at the whole case, gather all those facts together, whether it be books, internet, other audio sort of like bits of information. You can gather it all together and then have a whole picture, if you like, and look at it that way.
Because we feel like some people just jump on the true crime bandwagon as well, because like there's lots of cases going on in America where it's like everyone's doing that, so then like it's using them to propel their podcast or something.
Right.
Maybe. And we want to stay away from that. But us as people,
we're different, but also have like there's a lot of things that we like. I think personality wise, and a big thing for us, especially when we were back at work together, people go, outside of work they'd never have put us together. We just were so different in that sense. Natasha's very quiet, I'm very loud, and I think in that sense we're different. We've got a lot of separate hobbies that we wouldn't necessarily do. I've got my own ponies. I've always done that since I was a child. I'm not sure I could imagine you quite doing that.
Me on a horse? No. I do want to go riding, but I feel like I'd probably fall off and maybe break my neck.
So and then you do all your jewelry stuff. You're very good with the crafty side.
So I have my own business, which is mostly jewelry and like little candles and stuff, so that's mostly what I do. We also write together, which we're planning on doing in the future, but together we work well together.
We have very different interests, but there's a lot of things that sort of cross over. We're both into spooky things, sort of occult, magical, sort of all that sort of elements. There's lots we can talk about together. And we also, I think as well, even in terms of cases, like we have very different opinions on it and probably attack it from different angles, if you like, but ultimately we kind of feel the same about it at the end. I think it's quite a good way to look at it. We've got all those different views, but we're able to sort of understand each other quite well. I think is probably the best way to put it.
We're very good at lifting each other up when the other one needs it.
I was just going to say it's kind of good in some scenarios to have opposites, because the whole saying of opposites attract, right? So there's certain situations where I also wouldn't have met certain people in my life if I wasn't put in a certain scenario. So it's kind of cool how you guys met and did the graveyard shift together, and then you've kind of fulfilled that podcast dream of being the Graveyard Girls. So that's kind of cool.
And the two different perspectives coming together to kind of mix it up and play off one another. What has the response been from your listeners?
So far it's really positive what we've had. They like as well, like some of the people going, they really like my reactions. Like, you like to do, I can't stand alien conspiracy theories. And Natasha knows it. Part of it's a little bit like she knows it's going to get me quite worked up, and we get some really good response on those. They're like, we love how angry and passionate Amelia gets about these sort of cases.
Because you don't believe in aliens, but you believe in Bigfoot. So like the two ideas to me, just like they don't mix, and I'm just like, okay. But so I do a lot of alien things on purpose.
But we've got that, and I think as well, like, not that I have this thing of I'm very unfiltered.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times people either take it the wrong way or it might come across as quite inappropriate. And Natasha's a bit more like, no, Amelia, you shouldn't really be saying that. And I think sometimes that dynamic's quite funny because I'll just blurt something out. And Natasha's like, no, Amelia, you can't do that.
I'm starting to see myself in Amelia and Mom and Natasha.
Yeah. And just little things they say about, I know what gets the other one going. So
Yeah.
sometimes I poke a little bit, and
I think that's why we work so well. Like even with the napkins, when people used to hear us giggling and talking away, they were like, oh, they're right again.
Our mic just exploded. It sounded like, yeah, I am like the mother figure to Amelia. I think I am with our friends. I tend to be the one that everyone comes to. So yeah, that makes
I think
sense.
I don't know. You really have a calming influence on me. Like, I'm quite stressy. I get quite worked up about things, and Natasha's a bit more like, okay, let's think about this. Let's look at it. Like, don't go off on one. But yeah, then I think I can still reciprocate it back. I can still be there for you when you need it. But you're definitely the more mature one, I think.
We'll call it mature, we'll call it calming, whatever, right?
Calming, yes.
Yeah. Moving on to a different topic, we wanted to know what makes you feel most inspired or like your best self. Would it be the podcast, or would it be something outside of work, hanging out together?
I know, it's a good one. I definitely think my confidence has grown since doing stuff with you, because I'm one of the people like I just wouldn't try new stuff by myself. So yeah, I definitely think it's helped having someone that I can do something with, but also someone that I can trust, so that if I felt awkward or anxious, I know Natasha's not going to push me in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. So
but we push each other in a way that's like, you can try this, it's fine. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, you've learned something.
But we've also got that other person with us, so if something doesn't quite work out, it's like, it's okay, well, I wasn't on my own. And
I think, we do find inspiration from each other. I think the podcast has inspired us. Like, we're doing this, we've never done this before. This is, we do find inspiration from doing the podcast.
I think it's easy to push each other along as well. It's that sort of like, and I suppose there's an element if you don't want to let the other one down. So it's like, you definitely want to get on with it.
I find it's very interesting, the parallels between your relationship, although it's a completely different, relationship where you came in touch with each other and the subject matters that you deal with, and you're in a completely different country, but Kennedy and I, it's the same kind of lineup, really, when you look at it.
Yeah, and it's funny how you're saying similar struggles and certain things, and when you said, it's kind of beneficial to have two people on a podcast in a sense, because the other person is depending on you to be there. There's times where I'm just like, okay, Mom, can we just like hang out tonight and gossip and drink tea and eat snacks? And then Mom's like, no. And then some weeks it's the complete reverse. So it's kind of
I'm calling her going like, I don't like the way that one came out. Like, and she's like, Mom, it's okay. Like, it's called the Imperfect Podcast. Mom, like, relax. So the parallels of how having like one is down and the other lifts the other one up. And
it's interesting
that it's kind of the similar situation, because there are times when it's like, well, I didn't like that, and then it's like, well, no, it's fine, just and then it's just like, it does end up being like one of our better episodes if it's like one of us on and the other one's like, no, it's good.
That's what happens as well with us. Things that we expect are gonna flop or something that ends up being really good and we're happy about. So it's kind of funny to hear that you guys are the first ones we've interviewed when it comes to another podcast or even a video cast or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting to chat about how you guys are having similar struggles and hoops to have to jump through, but also similar experiences and things that you overcome. And it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're on your own, you can really overdo it as well. I think you'd be a lot more self-critical if it was yourself. Like, it's got to be perfect. When you're with the others, you're like, I didn't see it like that. That made sense to me. Like, if you had only heard it yourself, you're like, no, I don't like that.
Exactly.
She has this thing where she a lot. Like, can you edit that? No, it's fine. It's fine. Just that's how you speak. It's fine. We're gonna leave the arms.
We a lot too, and we sew, and
Mom's favorite thing to say is, and so we'll be listening to recordings sometime and she'll be like, holy geez, I just said, like 5 times in that one sentence.
Well, it's the worst, but then that's the worst thing for you, because once you've noticed it, it's
Yeah.
all you notice. Because
Yeah.
I noticed one thing, and there was another, I think it was in our first few episodes, one of the guys was like, yeah, you said like quite a lot. And I was like, I didn't think I did. And I went back and listened to the episode, and all I could hear was the word like.
Yeah,
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not yet.
Yeah.
But I think if you naturally had that conversation, like, we don't really notice it
No.
when we have a normal conversation. We probably still do it exactly the same amount. We just don't really notice. I think you block it out when it's someone you're talking to, because you take in the information
rather than the yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We try to be as natural as we are when we're speaking in podcasts. So I purposefully leave the arms in without telling you.
No, I think as well, you don't want it to sound too scripted. You want it to sound like us, and that's a hard thing. I think we struggled at first is bringing us into the episode, because it's like you want to deliver the case and get the facts out. And I think now, more that we've got comfortable recording, it's easier for bits of us to slip in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we're making it's funny, you're saying all things that we've gone through as well, and we're still like in that, okay, we need to stop reading things and get to the actual conversation. And it's hard. It's really hard, because like you said, you want to get the facts in and you're scared you're going to hit record and have nothing to say on the topic.
Yeah, we get, when we tried this new little bit where it's more of a discussion rather than pre-research, we were like, I don't know what to say now. Like, how are we going to start it? And we had all these other things. I was like, I don't know which bit we start at. And then sometimes we repeat ourselves like 10 times, and we get to end, it's like, okay, we'll just have to edit that bit out. And once you've got started, it is easier.
Yeah, it's just starting. Yeah. And it's just,
The Chronicles of Amateur Podcasters. I guess we could write a book.
Yeah, it is. You just watch one, you think, I could do that. It's not that difficult. You don't need to talk about something.
Right.
And then it's like, oh no, it's actually quite daunting.
It really is. But no, we're definitely enjoying it. I wouldn't change it. Like I said, we sort of started it, it was just going to be a hobby. We're like, we'll see how it goes, see if anyone's interested. And we've had a lot more interest than we were expecting. That's a good thing. It's good for us. But yeah, we definitely weren't expecting that to start off with.
No.
Right.
So in terms of the two of you, what would you each like to be when you grow up?
Oh, that is a good question.
Well, I've always wanted to be a writer. That's always a dream. And we're kind of in the process of doing that.
Yeah, we're getting there. I think I just want to be able to do stuff for myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, for the rest of my life, sort of, I think especially after working for a big company, you don't really get to be who you are, like you're dictated to, both in work and you're so restricted, like you just can't do things how you would want to do it. So it'd be like to either, whether it's with you or do something complete by myself, have some sort of business or something going so that I was not only financially sort of sufficient by myself, but I wasn't constantly answering to someone else. I think that's a big thing, because that's a real thing.
Yeah, both of us kind of want to be our own bosses, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, that's something daunting to do by yourself. So I don't know, maybe we'll dip into that together.
And if that's what it takes, you might as well take the opportunity, right? And it's interesting too, Mom and I were talking in a previous episode, I think a couple weeks ago, and just about how certain skills that we all have, like I had started my, when you graduate from high school and you're going off to secondary education, I thought I was going to be a teacher. And through the line, I am not at all a teacher. I'm an accountant by day. So it's not at all the same thing. But I was telling Mom how it's interesting how some people find fulfillment in their skills in things that they never initially thought was going to be the path. Like so you're saying you want to be a writer and you're working on that as is, but with the podcast, it gives you the opportunity to express yourself verbally more so, but not written. So we were just talking a couple weeks ago about how it's interesting people's skills get applied in places where maybe that's not where they initially thought it was going to go, but they end up using it regardless. And that's how you gain fulfillment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, definitely, I'm not doing anything like what I trained. I trained school. I was going to be working with horses for the rest of my life. That was the only plan.
Interesting.
I had. And I'm not doing it. I don't know, it was bad timing. When I finished qualifying, where we are over here in the UK, everyone went from employing people to look after the horses to they were now looking after their own, and the work just dried up. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? I haven't trained for anything else. I never was prepared to do anything else. And like I said, that's how I ended up in the same place as you. Is it was just, I was not planning on doing that at all, but I seem to have landed on my feet. And I look back now, have I actually benefited more from going into that? I've done so many things now that I wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And I think in a weird way, yes, okay, it's not what I'd always planned to do, but I've learned so much more and I've done so much more than I ever thought I was going to do. Yeah, I think on a whole, it's probably been quite a bit of a benefit.
Yeah, I think like we all have hopes and dreams maybe, and then adult life throws a curveball at you, and then you've got to kind of like adapt and survive in a way, and then most of the time you come out on top, which is really cool.
And that's the joke with between mom and I. I always ask her, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And a lot of people we ask at my mom's age, and they go, well, I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. And that's the thing. We're just on this never ending path of just finding fulfillment and doing what we love to do. And we might end up somewhere we expected to be or somewhere totally not. And that's okay, as long as we're happy with what we're doing, right?
Exactly.
I think so. Yeah, you always change. I mean, you could train for the same thing for years and years, and then get there, and you either don't like it, which I think would be an absolutely probably awful feeling at the time. But you're not going to.
I find it ironic that when, especially in Canada, when you graduate, when you're 17, 18 years old, you know what you're going to do, and that's all you're going to do, and that's your path, and you're stuck to it. And then, but once you get to be in your 50s, like me, it's like, I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up.
I think maybe like people change as they grow up, so goals should change as well.
Exactly.
And I guess for me, once the older I became, the more I realized that the world was so big, and I had limited myself when I was younger. It feels like you have to have that answer of what you're going to do, but it seems like it's more okay as you get older to go like, yeah, I screwed up a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to try something else now. So
I think as well, it's a lot to do with how you're taught in school. I don't know if it's the same way you are, but here, like, it's sort of like, you finish school, you're going to get a job that will pay for your house, then you'll either settle down on your own or you'll have a family. The reality is once you're left with school, there's lots of things that happen in your life that you don't learn about in school. So you come across these things and you're like, okay, well, I don't really know now. I hadn't factored in that might happen, and that might mean I have to change this. And so many different things happen that along the way that ultimately push you in another direction, and you could never ever prepare for them.
Right.
And I think that's what's so vastly different to what you expected when you were younger.
Yeah, because growing up, I never knew what I wanted to be. Even though I've said I want to be a writer, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So it's just, I don't know. It's a difficult question to ask. And
it is, and it's a broad question because we're always just, like I said, on this journey of figuring out who we are anyways, and having different interests along the way and meeting new people along the way, and that can totally change the route that we take. But on a next question, we wanted to know, what is your biggest regret or failure as individuals or podcast hosts together, co-hosts?
I think for me, there's been times like, I don't know, I've maybe gone along with stuff. I've been too afraid to say either I don't want to do it or I don't like it. And I'm thinking, well, if I could just get through it, then it's fine.
Oh, yes.
And then you really push yourself into a situation you don't want to be in. But then you've created so many, it's not really a problem for that person. You've just created more problems for yourself, and the stress and more the mental health side of it that comes with that, of just not having the guts to say no. And then one day something else, it could be something much more minor, and you turn around and go no, and the other person doesn't react in a negative way. You think, oh, well, if only I'd done that with those other instances, I would have made it so much easier for myself.
My whole life would be different.
Of saying no and people reacting so negatively that it's almost like it's got worse. I think it's a big fear, isn't it? It's having the confidence to say no.
Yes. Amelia's on a situation that we were both in, that we were like, oh, we're both in it together, so it's fine. And we were so used to everything going wrong that we thought the wrong feeling we were getting from this thing that could be good for us, we thought it was wrong because
we were scared for things to go right.
So then our gut feeling was right that it was going wrong. But because we were doing it for each other, we were like, oh no, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, and if it's a disaster, we're doing it together, it's fine.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that might have been a regret. I think, yeah, what you're saying is like either saying no to something when you should have done. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's just fear, isn't it? It's scary to say no, because you think, what happens if I say no and then it goes wrong? Like, and then I'm left on my own and I can't get myself out of a situation. I'm stuck. But then it's just as bad the other way, is if you agree to it but then hate it, you're still stuck.
That's another thing. I have this fear, I think, because I have my own business, I have a fear of like it being a success as well. So that kind of holds me back. And that's a regret that I do have. Like, I do need to focus more on my business, but it's a fear of success and failure.
Holy, that's mom. That's mom 100%. She's in the process.
I don't see it like this. When I see Natasha's stuff, I'm like, just get it out there. She is so creative. Her work is phenomenal.
I say the same to my mom.
I don't really know what to do. And I'm like, Natasha, just get it out there.
I know.
Yep.
It's just fear. I just don't know what it is. Fear of both success and failure. It's just.
I totally understand. Yeah. I'm at the edge of my toes are at the edge of the building, getting ready to launch my own business. And it's the same, the whole study game was like, okay, I could study all day long, but then once the study comes to an end, you're like, it's make it or break it time. And it brings in all these other things. And I mean, I have a background in psychology, so I was prepared for some of it, but not to the extent that it's been affecting me in terms of like, it just brings in all these other elements from your life that you never even realized were hanging out there, right?
Yeah. No, I do feel that, yes.
Yeah. Mom, do you maybe want to ask one more question, and then we'll ask the pièce de résistance?
Okay. How about what's the most important thing that you girls have learned in your life? Lives.
You're asking some very good questions.
They're thought-provoking ones. Yeah, we weren't messing around.
I don't know. In terms of
on the spot.
Lots of dead air.
That's all right.
Okay, we're winging it.
I don't know.
I've learned nothing.
I think you don't realize how much you don't realize how significant these things are, because you kind of, once you end up spending time with people, you just kind of take it for granted. Because I think we probably have learned a lot more than we've ever realized.
Well,
what I do is I listen to a lot of people before I can give them advice. I think that's something I learned. I don't think I have the ability to do that, Natasha. Something happens and I have an instant reaction. I literally have no filter. Well, I think of it in multiple ways. I think of like what the person wants to hear, what's the truth, what they can handle, and what is the truth. And
you're an overthinker.
Yeah. I am. I'm an overthinker.
Me too.
It annoys me a lot because I'm like, well, this is one thing, and I know, but this is another thing. But then no, people just get brutal honesty with me. That's it. It's a flat line. I'm just one or the other. I don't do an in between. I can't merge. It's all or nothing. Yeah, that's all you get from me.
That must make for some interesting conversations, because she's like tempering everything that she says. She doesn't want to say it too mean, and she has to pick the right time. And meanwhile, you're like, bang.
Yeah, that's straight in there. Yeah. Definitely, especially in work situations. Like, I know, like for me, like it's landed me in a few sketchy situations. Like, you can't say that, and I'm like, I'm not sugarcoating it. That doesn't, like, to me, if I've got to sugarcoat it, I'm lying, and I can't do that. So it's like, you might not like it, but people that get to know me, it's you're getting the if you want an answer, you're getting the honest answer.
And Amelia is autistic, so she does not have that filter.
It literally, whatever you ask, like you ask a question, you're getting the answer, and it will be the honest answer. And there's been a few situations where people are like, yeah, but that person's really sensitive, you can't say it in that way. And I was like, but they asked me the question, so I answered the question.
Yeah, and that dynamic between you, the both of you, the fact that you're both so different, it would create such a cool dynamic within a friendship, and even just recording with the podcast. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Some people definitely said they would never have put us together.
No.
But really, I think that's why it works.
It does work.
In more so, because I think you have more patience just to listen to me and let me go on.
Earlier, we recorded an episode and Amelia spoke for like 8 minutes. I don't remember what about. I think we were on about coming on here today, and I was like, I wanted to dress quite nice, and then you was on about, what was you on about?
I don't know, but I went on a bit of a rant.
Yeah.
Like, once I've got something in my head,
and I was like, we've been recording for 8 minutes. We need to like stop.
Yeah, I think you asked me like, should we do a bit of an introduction to it today rather than just jumping in the episode? And you asked me, oh, are you okay?
Yeah.
And then I did my thing of, oh, well, I'm going to answer that question, but I rabbited on for ages.
Sure.
You didn't need that much information about my day.
That's okay though. It's just we're ad-libbing everything anyways. So and once you get into it, it's the first 2 minutes that's the hardest. And especially with you guys being on video and not used to doing a whole podcast episode on video, I'm sure that was a big jump for you guys too. But after the first 2 minutes, like it's the same with us. We get on and the nerves start, but it's so easy to talk to you guys at the same time. So it's no big deal, right?
It's fine. It just feel like we know you. It's quite nice.
It is weird.
Yeah.
Once you settled into it, that was it. Because like I said, we hadn't thought about it too much, and then both of us did say like a few hours before, like, I feel a bit nervous now. Like I don't know why I feel nervous. Like nothing. It's not like we're performing to a whole room of people. We will obviously eventually. You don't know how many people are going to see it, but
right.
For the actual call, it is only you two.
And then when we clicked the link, my laptop decided to download, and we were like, is it going to be in time? Is it going to be in time?
I know. And I mean, if it happened, we would have talked 20 minutes later, but it always works out. And, we always get ourselves worked up for no reason. But just as a last question, we ask every guest this question with reference to our podcast name. What makes you imperfect?
Probably my double thinking.
That's a fair answer.
Relatable. It makes
I don't know what. I want to say it probably would be my unfilteredness. I don't think I'd ever be able to not do that. I don't think I have the ability to. There's certain situations, maybe after a time, I could be not necessarily more considerate, but I'd maybe learn over time with certain people to sort of change.
You don't need to change the way you are.
Mm.
Yeah, but a lot of people really don't like it.
Well, you don't need them.
Well, yeah, you should just be your most authentic self. And even that is hard in itself.
Yeah.
And just being natural and normal. So I don't know. You could see it as a fault, but other people could see it as a positive to your personality, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think even like now when we're recording, it's still not us. It's still a shyer version of us when we're recording our podcast. I think we still need to go along with that until we're our true selves. Because off mic, we are absolutely hilarious. And then
like pure gold.
Yeah. And then when we're recording, it's like
yep. The same with us.
Yeah.
It's just a mic. Nothing is in front of us.
Yeah.
It's just odd.
We try to tell ourselves it's like if we went to coffee and we're just having a chat, because like we could spend hours in there. We look at the time and we're like, oh my god, we've been here for like 3 hours.
Right.
But you come to record and I don't know why the natural. Yeah. It just doesn't flow.
Yeah.
So many times we've said, oh, we should have hit record before the first of this conversation because the guts of it are so good. But I think the spontaneity is what sparks that, as soon as you turn the mic on and get the computer ready, you're like you said.
We joked about wearing just mics all the time and then just editing.
Yeah, recording everything.
Good idea.
Yeah. It will come with time, I think. It's just we're still only we've nearly done a year. So really in the grand scheme of things, we really haven't been doing it for that long.
No, we're a baby.
Yeah, we're just, you'll get there. It's one of those things over time.
That's right. And that's it too. It's hard to believe. We've only been doing it since the fall. So it's strange to think we're only 20 something episodes in and to see where we started and where we are now and to think where we'll be at the 1 year mark or whatever. So yeah, there's lots of room for growth and everything, but definitely struggles along the way. What's that?
You don't know where it goes. You might massively end up changing what we're doing. We've tried so many other little things like mini series. You think you want to follow trends, but you also want to do what you want to do.
Right.
And it's fitting those in and working out what works and thinking, okay, well, this episode did so well. Maybe we go down this line for a little while. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we did want to give you the opportunity as well to just let everyone know where they can find you. We did quickly mention about the Patreon, but you can let people know where they can find that, where they can find your podcast episodes. I don't know if you're interested in sharing your personal business, if you wanted to put that out there, anything and everything, just so people know where to find you.
Okay. We are on Patreon. We are the Graveyard Girls on it.
Yeah. We do this every time, even in our episodes. Especially if you're on Instagram, head over to our Instagram, and in our bio for that, we have our links to everything else, including our website, which is thegraveyardgirls.co.uk.
Yes.
Then our TikTok, it's basically still all the Graveyard Girls, but with pod on the end. But hopefully by the time you've put in the Graveyard Girls, you should have found us.
And my business is Alpha and Amici. It's AMICE.com. So that's jewelry, t-shirts, candles, homeware. I will be expanding, but that is linked through the Graveyard Girls as well. So just look through us there.
Yeah, we're very clever. We've linked everything on our website. So if people want to head to that.
Yeah, and I'll link everything in the show notes as well, so that people can just do a quick click. But if people want to go snooping around and look at some of your Instagram posts or things like that, it gives them the opportunity as well. So thank you again for agreeing to chat with us.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you agreed, and you officially hit the video mark. So maybe that will open doors for you guys as well.
We've done the first one now. That's it.
Well, thank you for having us.
What's that?
Thank you for having us.
Oh, and
Oh,
thank
yes.
you. And it's like you said, it's kind of strange. It feels like we know you in some sort of other life or something. We're all the way in Canada, and it's just weird how people can relate so much. Technology has brought so much eye-opening things in the past couple of years, but this is really kind of cool that we get to do this. So we really appreciate you guys taking the time.
And we appreciate you as well.
It's nice. It's something a bit different to do, and like I said, it's a new audience as well.
Right.
It's-
And you never know. You never know who else you're going to, just through us or us through you, who is going to hear and want to take a peek. So it's all about making connections as well. So
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Thank
And
you.
good luck with yours as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully-
thank you and good luck.
Thank
We'll be chatting. We'll be checking in. I bet.
Right.
Another year, another year. We'll see how we go. See how we've got to.
True.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.